Good evening, everyone. Welcome to No Judgment here. I am your host, Tish Ross. I'm so happy that you guys are here, and I so appreciate you coming in to support my guest, Jess, with Tree Haven. If you guys don't know Jess, you're getting ready to really get to know him. And depending on our conversations, depending on questions, I'm not sure, but we're going to kind of see how this goes. You know how I am with my guest. I want you to tell your stories the way that you feel most comfortable. I want my guest to not feel rushed or pressured in any way. And so, as always, whenever someone is speaking, sometimes questions come into my head and I may take them off path and then have to redirect us back on path. But I believe that um, there is reasons for people coming out and coming forward. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a story. I'm going to come out, right up front and say that Jess and I, nor most of my guests, we are not doctors. We don't claim to be psychologists or anything like that. We are just two human beings that are here to share our story in hopes of doing some good. So, loss and death is a natural thing. We all are going to experience it, whether it's loss of family members or friends or siblings or parents. And we all are also going to die ourselves. And while death seems to be something that almost seems gloomy, gloom and doom, yes, there is grief, there is pain, immense pain, and I feel like the more that you love someone, the more that you're given that gift of love, then we then receive the gift of pain. How we get through that is entirely up to us. And so I'm going to bring Jess in. He has an amazing story. I haven't even shared any of what Jess shared with me with Pooch. Um, because I want Jess to come on and to share his story and for people to hear it from him the first time. And like I always say, that no one can tell your story and impact anybody else the way that you can. So I want to quickly go through the chat while I have you guys in. And if you have the capabilities to share this out, I certainly do appreciate that. I appreciate you. And I know that Jess will too. Let's see here. I'm going up to the top just to kind of welcome people in. I tried to do that a little bit earlier. And to his family that are here, to Jess's family that are here, I thank you for being here. It's an honor, an absolute honor to have Jess on to share his story. And I thank you for coming in for your support. So thank you, Brian, the Vineyard Farmhouse, Leanne Gunther, Justin, Backroad Freedom, Evelyn Newman, thank you, Dot Roper, Melinda Dobson, Marianne Bimler, thank you for being here. And let's see here. I think I already said Brian, the Vineyard Farmhouse. Cora Phelps, thank you for being here. Leanne Gunther, thank you for being here. Let's see here. And if I miss you, I do apologize. I will try to go back and catch it. If you have a question or comment for Jess or for myself, I will try my best to check those comments as we're going along. And if I miss them, then I have Pooch is here to kind of remind me or to signal or flag me in that there's an important question. Not that they're not all important, but and I'll try to get to as many as I can. I can't promise that I'll get to all of them. There's Sean. Let's trade paint. Thank you for being here. And I'm quickly moving down. Coach G, Jailbait and Tackle Outdoors. Thank you for being here. Ken, Lone Cowboy Adventures. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all you guys for coming in and supporting us. Emma Rowland, thank you for being here. Bobby Pettit, Jean River Homestead, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Rayleigh Creative Travel, thank you for being here. Yes, Emma, I know that definitely they are all in for a treat for sure. Let's see here. Mickey Critter Creek, thank you for being here. Yes, prayers for Jess as he comes in to share his story. Lynn the Okie, thank you for being here. Dogman, thank you for coming in. Tiny Tim Posey, thanks for coming in. I appreciate you. Sophia Starlin, thank you for coming in. White Rock Homestead, I appreciate you for being here. Piggy's Piddles, it's always good to see you. Karen Breast. They.love.lucy says, hi, Dad. Thank you for being here. Let's see here. Freedom Redbird, Brenda, thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you guys. I'm going to go ahead. Lindsay, thanks for being here. Into the Mist. And I'm going to scroll on down. And again, I know that there are a lot of you in here, and I appreciate you being here to support Jess. Rebecca Touch My Arm, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Pooch, Full Blown Country. Marilyn McCullum. Marilyn, so happy to see you here. All right. Heard that. I appreciate you being here. Rebel at Heart Kelly, she's in the house. Doc Roper. Heather Lindstrom. All right. Again, I appreciate everyone that's coming in. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Jess in so that we can get started. All right. And thank you guys for your support and your love, and just continue to give him some shout outs and welcomes in. There he is. There's the man of the hour, Jess. I'm so happy that you are here. You know, you
Happy to be
guys,
here.
I'm so glad. I am, again, I am honored that you reached out and that you wanted to come on and to share your story. One of the things that I want to make sure that everyone knows is that Jess's focus is on helping and healing and doing good here. My focus is to make sure that he does that. But also, before we can get to the good stuff, you know, even in life, and that's why it's a journey, and that's why these are testimonies, and that's why we have trials, and that's why there's loss. In order to connect and to make sure that that hope is given, that it is received, and that it is truly felt and truly believed, you have to go through the tough stuff first. And so I've let Jess know that while he's telling his story, that the details are important. Now, how specific and how tiny, maybe not the tiny details, but the details of his story are important so that you can see the impact that he has and it's trying to make in sharing the goodness and the positive and the help and the good that he wants to do. And that's what his primary focus is. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, if I'm misquoting.
No, that's absolutely right. You know, we all go through stuff, and how we take things that happen to us in our life, and how do you move forward with that, and how do you help other people, is very important to me. So you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just tell me, why did you reach out, and why do you want to tell your story? I think you kind of already answered the second part, but why did you reach
Yeah.
out?
Um. Well, for one, I think everybody here in the chat can agree with me. You're wonderful. You're a safe
Mm,
place. Um. People listen to what you have to say. You're caring. Um. That's why. You know what I mean? That's why. I've told this story a whole bunch of times, and I was telling one of my friends a little while ago, I've already told this whole story. I've already shot this whole video, and
mm,
I never could bring myself to edit the video.
mhm,
And it was shortly after that that I reached out to you once I saw what you were doing and the impact that you were making in other people's lives. I felt like it was more important for me to share my story with you on your podcast, because it's to me it's better to have somebody to share it with. You know, if I'm talking
mhm,
to you, we're feeding off of each other. Other people are listening. If I was to tell the story and just shoot it my own self and edit my own self and leave parts out and put the parts in that I want, it to me it wasn't going to feel authentic, you
mm.
know. And so
Yep.
I knew that I knew by coming on your show, doing it live, I'm just gonna let it all out and tell it exactly like it is,
Perfect.
and you are an absolute blessing that
Mm.
what you do even exist for people like me. You know what I mean?
Well,
Because
I
it gives
appreciate
me
that.
the opportunity to to share some of the stuff that's happened to me and
Mm.
try to use that for positivity, and maybe it might help somebody else. You know what I mean? We've all been through
I
bad
do.
stuff, but it's also about me, and telling my story and getting stuff out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And,
So
Jess, and I
it's about that too,
appreciate.
you know what I mean? Like, man, like, why does this stuff happen? Like, how do I use this? How do I use this to help other people? You can't use it to help other people if you don't tell the story.
Exactly.
You have to
And you
tell the
know what,
story.
Jess? I
Right.
I have to tell you that when, before I started to do this podcast, and first of all, I appreciate, your kind words, but really it is not me, it is the people that agree to come on to share their stories, that do so much good, for others, and so I appreciate that, but, it for me, whenever I first told my story, the whole reason behind it was to help other people, exactly, and you cannot help other people unless you share your story. And for
Right.
me, everyone knows that my faith is important to me. And how dare I
Right.
not share what God has got me through?
Right.
If I could bottle it up and sell it, man, I would sell it. I would do it. But each has to go through their journeys, each has their own purpose. Each death affects people in different ways.
It
Grief
does.
recovery
Yep.
is different for many people. And Mike and I, as you and I were chatting earlier, we lost Ben, and we both went through grief, the stages of grief, if you will, at different times, at different rates. And boy, did it affect us as individuals and our marriage as a whole. And as everybody knows that has listened, we almost didn't make it because of the grief, but we choose. You have the opportunity to choose. You can choose to say, hey, this is where I am in grief. I just need you to support me. I might not be the greatest person to be around right now, or I might just need you just to hold me and don't say a word to me. I just need you to know that this is where I am in my grief. And if you have that support, knowing that whatever stage of grief you're in, whether you're angry, whether you're angry at God, whether you're cursing Him, whether you're thinking, why the hell did this happen to me? Whether you're in the mourning part of grief, you're sad, you're depressed. For Mike and I, it almost became a drinking, a numbness. But we made it through. And I think that having you come on to share your story of loss, of grief and recovery, moving into positivity and learning how to live beyond your loss is going to do a whole lot of good. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away. I want us to kind of start with your childhood. I always start with people's childhoods because um, other people that are listening, again, it's all about other people that are listening, may say, "Hey, I kind of had that. My childhood was like that," or "My childhood was nothing like that." But maybe they can learn something from it. So let's talk a little
Right.
bit about your childhood, your parents, and then you go ahead and tell your story.
Yeah. Right. Starting back from the beginning, I was born in San Diego. Uh, Mom and dad split up whenever I was about one, and we moved to Northern California at that time, which I lived in a town called Redding, California, not too far from Mount Shasta. So, uh, just a great place to grow up. Kind of lived in the country and enjoyed country life. Uh, we lived for a while. I know my mom's listening, so I don't want to really mess this up or anything, but we lived for a while like in a tent. I was a little hippie kid, growing up in the 70s, and my
Mhm.
mom got remarried, and my stepdad worked construction and worked at campground, building campgrounds, things like that. And he was a framer, so I was just a little kid, and
Mm,
We did that for a summer and stuff like that. And guess I was 3 years old when my little brother was born, and
mhm,
his name is Cole. And my grandson's name is actually Elias Cole, which the middle name's named after my brother that passed away.
mhm,
And uh, mom and my stepdad's name was Paul. And uh, you know, it was everything. It's me and him. I was a little kid. He was 2, 3 years younger than me, and we're just running around being little kids.
mm,
And make a long story short, he passed away whenever he was 3, and tragic accident. He died in a drowning accident.
mm,
And I don't remember a lot of the details from it because I was so young myself. I was 6 years old. This happened in
mhm,
1980, so we were just kind of coming out of the 70s.
mhm,
And Cole was down the road, a couple houses down, with his friend and you know his parents, and they were playing in the yard and doing things like this. And from the story that I know, just from my mom telling it, was he's down there playing, but he's supposed to be coming home, and she's making food for them, lunch and stuff like that. Mom called the neighbor lady and said, "Hey, can you send the boys over? I got their sandwiches made and stuff like that." And
mhm,
and she told mom um, that she had already sent them on their way, but they weren't there. So all of a sudden, it's like freak out. Where are the kids at? You know what I'm saying? Two
right,
little kids. And no cell phones. I mean, like you're literally just panicking, looking for your child. And
right,
well, they had ran off on their bikes, and we didn't really know where they were. And I remember some of the details that I remember was just that overwhelming fear and panic in my mom's voice at the time, of not knowing where your kid is.
mm,
And I remember getting in the car and rushing around, and we mom kind of had the intuition of where to look for him and stuff like that. I guess. I mean, I don't really know how she knew that, but uh, I think the neighbor lady was trying to help, and everybody was freaking out.
mhm,
And she said, "Well, my husband, is right over there. There was kind of like back behind our house. There was kind of like a field, and they would do like like flea markets and swap meets and things like that." And she said,
mhm,
"Well, let's go look over there." I mean, and it wasn't like she rounded the corner, in the car, and she come up on the little boy that was with my brother. They were about the same age, and I do remember that he was pushing his bike, and I remember mom asking, "Where's Cole?" And he really he didn't talk, like he was in shock or whatever, and
mm,
mom said he just pointed. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
I remember hauling butt down there. There's a creek down there, and I just remember mom just like 90 to nothing to get down there. And the next real memory that I have was somebody coming to help. Mom screaming.
mm,
Uh, my mom found him. Okay, my mom found my little brother, and he there was a little creek down there that was known, kind of throughout the community, and people would go down there and hang out and stuff like that. Well, I guess the boys got it uh, in their mind that they were going to go down there. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
they kind of went through the neighbor's yard and went over there, and evidently Cole fell in. We don't really know the story behind it, but my mom found him and drugged him up out of the water. I remember sitting there watching my mom. She's trying to do CPR on him, screaming. It's just gut wrenching. And
yeah, it is, and I'm so
it's gut
sorry,
wrenching.
Marilyn.
Yeah, yeah. And there was a couple guys that came and helped that were working over there close and could hear the cry for help and everything.
Mhm,
And I just remember I was kind of sitting on this hill, and I remember looking down at my mom. I was trying to stay back, and I just remember sitting there looking down, and my little brother like sprawled out on the ground, and these adults are trying to resuscitate him and everything. And
Mm,
uh, then, you know, ended up going to the hospital. I kind of remember some of that. I remember my stepdad coming into the hospital and screaming for his son, and they had to call him at work, and he had to come in, and it's just horrible feeling. I mean, I was so young that I cannot get my brain wrapped around what's happening. You know what I
right.
mean?
Right.
I I was old enough to realize what was happening, but you don't process information the same when you're 6 years old as you do when you're as old as I am now. Or
Right.
even as I got older in life. And I remember going to the funeral, and just a little country church up the road from the house, if I remember right, and family and friends being there, and it just being really sad, you
Mhm,
know.
mhm,
And from that point on, uh, I was a lone little child. You know, you go from one day having your brother and your best friend and your playmate and everything, and then he's not there, and you're lonely. You know,
yes.
and we moved around a lot. Mom and my stepdad, they didn't make it
Mhm.
after that.
I understand that.
Yeah, they didn't make it, and so we moved around a lot, and not a whole lot. Mom might be like, we didn't move around that much, but I mean, I do remember, we having to find our own place, and then, some other things happened. Make a long story short, we ended up in Arkansas. Okay, uh, I had or we had family that lived here in Arkansas, and
Mhm,
so I think at that time, mom, I was little, so just kind of looking back and kind of putting the puzzle pieces together in conversations that I've had with my mom over the years, it is just like when something really bad happens and you don't know what to do, you're lost and you're broken, and you
mhm.
want to be around people that will support you. So
Right.
our support system was in Arkansas. My mom's
Okay.
sister, aunt, uncle, cousins, all my little cousins, first cousins, everybody lived in Arkansas at this time. My grandpa owned a business that he started in California, but he was doing business all over the United States. So he kind of made a home in Arkansas, and a lot of people worked for him, a lot of family members worked for him and things like that. So we all just gravitated towards Arkansas. Thank God, because I love living here. You know what I mean? I'm glad we came to
Mhm,
Arkansas. I really am. And uh, when we got back here to Arkansas, I was in second grade, and my mom reunited with one of her old friends. Okay, and his name was Pat. This is a couple years
mhm,
later, and Pat was actually he actually worked for my grandpa, and so but they knew each other from the California days. So when my grandpa moved back to Arkansas, there was a lot of people that kind of traveled and went with them and helped start the business in Arkansas and stuff like that. So Pat was kind of one of them. But Pat and my mom knew each other from high school back in California, and it
mhm,
was just coincidence that he was here working. But they did end up getting together, and whenever I was 9, they had my little brother Eli. So there was 9 years apart between me and him, and I took Eli everywhere with me. I mean, he was like everything to me. You
I
know what I mean?
bet.
And I didn't really think about it at the time when it's happening, but looking back and as time went on, I felt like a protector for Eli. Like this is
Mhm.
my second chance. This is my brother that I've got this other chance with. So I was real protective over him, and
Uh,
go ahead.
Jess, let me ask you this question real fast. and just because of your comment, and it may just be me reading into it, but when you say this is my second chance and I'm the protector, do you, it's going to be a hard question. Um, do you feel like because you were not with your little brother at the time, did you blame yourself at all? Do you did you feel like you
No,
weren't there to protect him or
no, I didn't.
no?
No, I think I was. I don't remember feeling that way, but you got to
I mean,
understand
not
by
as
the
a child, but as you get older.
not so much on Cole because I was just so young. You know,
Gotcha. Okay.
I
Mhm.
understood. I as I got older, I understood.
It was an
Things happen,
accident.
and it was a freak accident. Uh, you know, I worried more about my mom. Once I
Yes.
got older and could kind of wrap my brain around what it must feel like to lose a child,
Mhm.
and how devastating and how hard that might be. And some of that never really even kicks in until you have kids of your own. Then
That's
you
right.
then you're really like, I could not imagine anything happening to my kids. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes,
And
yes. Okay, I
I
didn't mean to get you off track. So
no, I'm
you
not off
felt
track.
like
It's fine.
that Eli, you became then Eli was your second chance and you
Yeah,
were just a great protector of him.
yeah. I mean, I feel like I was. I think my mom can agree. I mean, like even whenever I was older and could drive and stuff like that, if I was going to do something, like Eli was coming with me pretty much, and
Mhm.
he really wanted to be with me as much as possible, and we just hung out all the time, and he was interested in the same stuff I was interested in, and I just always wanted him to do good and learn how to do stuff. And then later on as we grew up, like he even like would work with me. I've been self-employed pretty much my whole life, so he would come and help me do jobs and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, Eli, my dad moved on. My dad had two sons of his own,
Mhm.
who I'm pretty close with. Um, I would still go see my dad once a year, twice a year, or my dad traveled around a lot and worked all over the place. He was a pipe fitter and a welder, and he worked did big huge union jobs and stuff like that. So he would move all over the United States. So I got a lot of travel opportunities whenever I would go see my dad. Like he would have me come out for the summer or whatever,
Mhm.
and sometimes it'd be really cool, fun places. And anyway, so I got to spend time with my other two brothers, which their names are Michael. He's the oldest one, and the youngest one, who's a couple years younger than Mike, is Jonathan. And Jonathan is who my son is named after.
Mm.
And uh, hang on, sorry, my phone's ringing. And so I got to know them and always looked forward to hanging out and spending time with them during the summer times or over Christmas or whenever we would get to see each other. We got to build that relationship, but they did live in Arkansas for a little while. Okay, my dad was
Okay.
kind of in a spot where had a house in the same town where we lived, and his wife at the time, she would stay there planted, and my dad would go out and work. But I was living by my brothers and stuff like that. So that did happen for a little while, but
Mhm.
we got to spend a lot of time together. Anyways, um, as time went on, uh, got married, had Emma, who's in the chat right now. Emma Rowland, that's
Yes.
my daughter. She's my oldest kid. She's 25 years old now, and um, just married and raising kids of my own and working. I grew up doing working for a family business, doing flooring. So I kind of grew up learning how to do trades and stuff like that. Just is basically a carpet store, and still in existence to this day. Actually,
Oh,
it's been
awesome.
around for a long time. Yeah. And so I grew up doing that. I got bad knees. I did it for a long time, but I also learned how to do other stuff too. So I learned a lot about remodeling and things like that. And then later on became a contractor and work on houses and build and stuff like that. So that's kind of what my background is. But not to get sidetracked on the story,
No, you're fine.
I
Life
guess that's
life
part of the
continues.
story too. Yeah, life continues.
Mhm.
Um, my my dad calls me one day and he's like, my brothers live out in San Diego. Okay, suburb of San Diego, town called El Cajon. It's right outside of San Diego. They're all
Both
kind of
Michael and Jonathan?
yeah, they're all those
Okay.
little towns are kind of connected. You can't really tell when you get leave one and enter another one. But
Mhm.
Michael and Jonathan both lived out there. They grew up a lot differently than I grew up. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. They kind of grew up gang banging in their
Mhm.
environment that they lived in. I feel like their mom loved them, supported them, gave them a good household, good Christian values. I know her very good. She's been with me or been around me since I was a little baby. Mom and her actually have known each other for years and years and years.
Mm,
And
mhm.
I feel like she gave them a good home life. But sometimes you're a product of your environment.
That's
And
right.
they grew up in high school, and everybody else is little thug gangbangers, and that's kind of how they were. And both of them in and out of trouble since they were little kids, and in and out of homes, and just living kind of like bad little lifestyle with their friends and stuff like that.
Mm,
And one day I get a call from my dad, and I'm like, "Hey, Johnny's in trouble. I'm putting him on a bus, and I'm sending him back to you, Arkansas. He needs to get away from the situation that he's in." Okay, and so I'm like, okay, I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take care of them or do whatever. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, because like I've been kind of removed from that lifestyle that they're living in. You know what I
right.
mean?
Of
And so
course, yes.
I don't really understand like the depth of the gang banging situation. You know what I mean? I'm
Okay.
like this little
Yes.
country guy from Arkansas, you know what I'm saying? But I'm an
Mhm.
adult, love my brothers. I'm like, yeah, bring him on. So he
How
came back
old
to
was he then? How old was he when he came to live with you?
Johnny was like 18 when he came
Okay.
to
Mhm.
Arkansas, and my dad knew that he would be safe with me. He's far removed from any troubles out there, and he'd be safe. I could put him to work and hopefully influence him and get him set up with his own place and all this kind of stuff. So
Right.
Johnny lived with me, or Johnny was back here for a year. Okay, he just lived with me for a little while. We got him a house rented, and then he would just work with me every day. He even got a second job and worked a second job in the evenings just to make extra money and stuff like that, and he was doing really good. Like
Mhm.
I felt like he was kind of getting used to Arkansas. you
Mhm.
know he always kind of never really felt like he fit in. He looked different, he talked different, but he was just lovable Johnny. I just treated him like anybody else, but I don't really know how he really felt on the
Mm,
inside. I think there
mhm.
was there was part of his old life or his mom or that side of the family that he missed. uh, no matter what I did to try to make him feel comfortable, I think there was just a part of his life that he really missed. And
I get that, I get
yeah,
that.
yeah. And one day I go to pick him up for work and he ain't there. And I'm like, "Where's Johnny?" So I'm going to the people that I know that knows him. I'm like, "Hey, have you seen Johnny? Hey, I can't call him. He can't get a hold of him on his phone." Went to his second job, asked one of his friends up there if he's seen Johnny, and he's like, "Hey, Jess," he said, "Hey, man, I don't want to have to tell you this, but Johnny split out on a Greyhound this morning." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, he went back to California." He said he didn't want you to know because he knew you'd try to stop him. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
right.
And which is fine. I mean, he's an adult. He's 19
Right.
he's 19 at this time. and so I didn't really beat myself up too much about it, but I
Sure.
wanted to know if he was okay. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And then I try to call and everything, and I get a missed call from my brother Mike, the older one,
Mhm.
and Mike's like, Jess. I'm like, what's up, Mikey? I said, I'm freaking out because Johnny left and all this kind of stuff. He said, I know. He just like got on the bus and he's like, want to come back. And he didn't want to tell you. So like Mike kind of knew, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But he said, hey, he said, hey, Johnny came in the room last night. He just went back, started living with his mom and dad. He figured he kind of got in a little trouble, and he felt it wasn't with the police, but it was with some other people. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of doing some stuff he
Right.
wasn't supposed to do. So basically, I think he thought maybe the smoke had cleared a little bit, and he's going to
Mhm.
go back to California. So Mikey, whenever he called me, he's like, "Hey, bro," he said Johnny came in last night, and I seen him racked out in his bed, or kind of on the edge of the bed, and I passed by and I didn't really think nothing about it. He just thought maybe he got drunk or something like that and was just kind of like flopping there. And he
Sure.
said he said he wasn't. He said Johnny's gone. Johnny's gone. And oh man, I was like devastated because I felt like he had Johnny. Let me just clarify this. Like Johnny kind of had a bad heart since he was a little baby.
Okay.
Okay, always kind of had heart problems, stuff like that. I am not 100% sure exactly what happened.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, my brother Mike just found him dead. They weren't running an autopsy or nothing like that. So it's a little bit of a mystery as to what happened, but we
Mhm.
speculate kind of what happened. That doesn't really even matter that much how it
Right.
happened or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, Johnny's gone, and I was devastated, just devastated because I felt like he was kind of on my watch. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like my dad sent him out here to me, and then as soon as he goes back to California, like Johnny's dead. And so I did have a lot of guilt from that. Like maybe I should have done more to check on him a little bit more, or maybe like if I could have done something different. Like I was just living my life. Like I had kids and a wife and
Of course. Of
work and
course.
all this kind of stuff. I felt like Johnny was probably okay, but you just never know. You never know.
You're right. I mean, and Jess, I mean, for
Never
anybody
know.
that's listening and who, I mean, I'll even have to refer to mine and Mike's situation with Ben. You see people, um, brothers, sisters, children, parents making strides to um, do well, and you're doing everything that you can
Right.
to um, help them, encourage them uh, to do well. But at the end of the day, adults, we adults, I mean, children too, but older children, but we make our own choices, and I understand the feeling like I wish I could have done more. I played that whole woulda, shoulda, coulda,
Yeah, it's easy.
blame, shame. It
Right.
is very easy.
It's
And
easy.
so, and I know that because when we get to your part of your grief and your healing, that there's ultimately there there's not anything that we can do. So, and I'm so sorry. And so, Jonathan or Michael finds Jonathan.
Yeah, Michael finds Johnny, and of course, Mikey and Johnny, they were full-blooded brothers. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
We were half. I'm not taking anything away from the brotherly connection because we had it, but it was different with Mikey.
Sure.
You know, and Mikey been in and out of trouble too, and that was Mike's full-blooded brother, and
Hmm.
so Mike, me and Mike have a whole different kind of connection. I mean, I love that dude, you
Hmm.
know, and my heart just, like, I dealt with my own grief,
Right.
but I knew Mikey's was worse, and so there wasn't anything I can do. I mean, I just got to keep going on with my life. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
there's literally nothing I can do. And then later on, uh, Mikey was getting in and out of trouble. Mikey went to prison several times for gang banging stuff. Never really did drugs or nothing like that. It was always just other stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he was in and out. You know, I felt like I was losing him. And finally, he got out. And I mean, years. He would do years in and out. Like, I don't even remember how many different times he went in for year. You know, 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, whatever. Finally, he
When
got
you
out.
say "in," you mean in
Prison,
the gangs in prison? Yes.
in prison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Mikey was getting he was getting to be one of the older ones in his gang that he
Mhm.
was in, and so he's considered kind of an OG, you know. And I don't know how it all works. I know a little bit about how it all works, but that's pretty much how it works. And if you're 25 years old in a gang, you're considered old. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you're one of
Right.
the older ones. You've been doing this since you were like 13 years old. That's pretty much how it
Right.
works. And so I knew all this history with Mikey and Michael and Jonathan's mom. Her and mom knew each other good. She would reach out to me. She would be devastated. She wouldn't know what to do. Mikey's going to prison. Johnny's dead. All this kind of stuff is just horrible stuff.
Mm.
And Mikey finally, kind of the same thing, what happened to Johnny, but Mikey finally got in a place where he's just like, bro, I'm coming to Arkansas. You know what I mean? He talked about it all the time. Like, if we could have just stayed living in Arkansas, none of this would have happened. Just like all kinds of stuff like that. Because
Sure.
remember, I told you they lived here for a while.
Right. Mhm.
But they were real little back then. But he always just wished that he would have been able to stay in Arkansas. If we would have just stayed living there, you're a product of your environment. You know what I mean? You're who you hang around with.
Right.
And he knew if he wasn't hanging around that crowd and could have grew up in a different way, that maybe life would have been a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? And so Mikey finally got to the point where he wanted to come back to Arkansas. I'm like, come on. And it wasn't good. I mean, it was good to see my brother, but you know, it by that time he's an adult. He's 25 years old. You know, he'd
Mhm.
been doing this for a long time, and uh, he gets arrested. Okay, he gets arrested. He'd been with me for a year. We worked together. Um, just he lived with me. At this time, I'm single. Me and Emma's mom had split up, and Mike lived with me, and we worked together, just kind of like me and Johnny did. But me
Mhm.
and Mikey worked together, and he ended up getting arrested. He had a lot of other priors, things like that. I mean, he had a rap sheet, you know, this thick.
Right.
And California, they got different laws. You know, they had, I don't know if they still have, but like 3 strike rule and things like that. You know, I mean, they they absolutely just hammered him, threw the book at him. So Mikey goes down for a long time.
Mhm.
Okay, um, he went to prison, and he went to Chino, and he was in prison with a lot of really bad people. You know, bad people, and murderers, and everything you can possibly imagine. And we stay connected, writing letters and things like this. And this goes on for years,
Mm,
Tish. I
mhm.
mean, years and years and years. Um, how long was Mikey in prison for? 17 years.
Wow.
He's in for 17 years, and nobody. he didn't kill nobody or hurt anybody. Uh, but when you get in trouble enough times in California, doing things you're not supposed to be doing, they don't really like that. You know what I mean? And I'm not
Right.
saying Mikey was an angel, but he didn't rape nobody, he didn't murder nobody, he didn't kill. He didn't do none of that stuff, but he did go down for a long time. And I think sometimes too in prison, if you're part of a riot or things happen, you can also get time added on. So I mean, it's really, really hard for people that grow up in that environment to actually get out of it. I mean, it is
Yes.
so hard. Like, no matter how much you talk to them, no matter what you do, like, once that ball starts rolling, man, it is hard to it is
Absolutely.
just
It
so hard
is.
to come
I
out of
mean,
it.
Jess, I've seen, people actually have, interviewed a gentleman that was in prison for a long time, and, when you are well known for, like you said, may not have ever killed anyone or shot anybody, stabbed anybody, but when you live the life as a gang member and uh, you have a reputation that follows you, even if you want to turn your life around, w it's almost like it's too late,
Yeah, it's like it's too
unfortunately.
hard. Yeah,
Yes,
it's so
to
hard because the way Mikey explained it to me was, when you're in prison, the prison system will affiliate you with your gang members that are also in prison. I mean, they all have prison tats, they all have affiliation, and you kind of get sided with the people that are like you. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And the
Right.
problem is there's a hierarchy in prison. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And so
Yes.
the prisoners have their own politics in prison. So sometimes when you're in prison, especially if you go down for a long time, you have to get your mindset, either I have to join sides, or this is gonna be hard for me, you
Yes.
know?
It's almost,
And
if you don't join
it's almost
sides, you're gonna get
impossible. Yeah.
your
Right.
butt beat,
Right.
you
It's
know?
almost like that because each side wants as many people as they can because that makes their side stronger. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you come to our side and now we're one stronger or whatever. And then once you're in that side, now there's a hierarchy for your side, like who's going to be mayor, who's going to be secretary, who's going to do this bad thing to advance us for. It's crazy to me. But like
It is.
it's crazy. I've studied it a lot, but like I understand it because when you're in prison, like, that's your life.
It
Like,
is.
you have to learn how to survive in prison. Like, you have to learn how to survive and not get killed, stabbed, beat
Mhm.
up. Like, it is absolute. Just I can imagine it just being terrifying, and
Absolutely. It's
picking
everyone there
sides
has
for.
a toe, I mean, a tag on their toe, I mean, it's
Right.
like everyone is, even if you are in a gang and you're placed with your kind or your group or whatnot, still you are pitted against each other, and it's almost a matter of time sometimes for some,
It can
but
be,
yes,
yeah. It really
it
can
is,
be.
it's a scary place to be, I'm
It's
sure.
a scary place to be. And Mikey had a long time to go in there, and in the meantime, Mikey's in prison, and I'm living my life, you
Mhm,
know, and I got remarried and had my wife had our son Jonathan, named after my brother,
mhm,
and Emma and Jonathan, and uh, me and my wife were we had a trip planned. John David. I call my son John David. His name is
mm.
Jonathan, but I've been calling him that since he's little. I don't really call him that too much anymore because he's old now. He just graduated high school, so trying to go with Jonathan now. But he uh, he was about 5 years old, and my me and my stepdad Pat, if you remember me telling you about Pat and my him and my mom had my brother Eli.
Mhm.
Um, we always remained close. Pat and my mom were married for quite a while. They ended up splitting up years later, but Pat always remained part of the family, like
Mhm.
stepdad. And he was always really super good to me. A matter of fact, I'm a photographer, and I was a photographer way before I became a videographer. And Pat is the person who I drew a lot of my inspiration from because he
Mm.
was a photographer. And but he did it the old school way. He did it the good way with film. When you really actually had to compose a shot and you couldn't hit delete. But
Yeah.
he traveled around a lot, and after him and mom split up, he remained a single, uh, just single dad.
Mhm.
You know, and he liked to do things. He liked adventures, and he liked to play golf. And he would travel around a lot and do photography, like to kayak, things like that. And my wife and I at the time were planning a trip to Disney. To take Jonathan to Disney, and we were doing just a big trip. It was about a two
Sure.
week. It was about a 2 week trip, Florida
Mhm.
trip, and John David was playing t-ball. He's 5 years, or excuse me, he's 4 years old at the time. He was four, and he was playing t-ball. And Pat would come to his little t-ball games because he just lived right in the next town over. So every time there was a
Okay.
game, he'd be like, "Hey, let me know when John David's playing, and I'll come to it." So we always did, and he always showed up. This is about 14 years ago. Okay, what I'm telling you right now is about 14
Mhm.
years ago, and he was scheduled to come to one of John David's t-ball games. It was on a Friday, and the next morning we were leaving out to go to Florida, and we were driving. We were going to be gone 2 weeks, and he didn't show up. Pat didn't show up, and we thought that was weird because he was always a show upper. I mean, he would call you, if he wasn't going to make it, but he always showed up. But he wasn't a big cell phone guy. He kind of
Okay.
like, I got one for emergencies. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But
Mhm.
he's still kind of old school. You had to leave him a message on his answering machine. And but he didn't show up. I thought that was weird. I tried calling him a couple times, and no answer. So I chalked it up for he left out on he's doing something and you can't get a hold of him. No big deal. We left out that next morning, went on 2 week long vacation, came home. I got him a couple presents because it was gonna be Father's Day when we got back. And I had a couple presents when we got back. We got back on Saturday, 2 weeks later. Sunday was Father's Day. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I told my wife, let's go up and see dad. And I want to take him these Father's Day presents. We'll show him some pictures and it'll just be a good time and everything. Tried to call him, boom, 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 couldn't call him. So she's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, let's just drive out there and see what's up. By this time, I'm not gonna lie, Tish. I mean, I'm not feeling right about this situation.
I was
Okay.
going to ask you
I ain't
that.
feeling right. I'm telling you right now, I ain't feeling right. And y'all know how it is. I mean, anybody listening, those people. Like when you call, they're gonna call you back, right? They're gonna answer. They're gonna let you know what's going on. And he was one of those people.
Mhm.
That just very upstanding man, worked hard and was there for you, and just predictable,
Mhm.
and
Respectable,
yeah, just
responsible.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. He was just that type of dude. And so we head off. It's me and my wife at the time, and John David, and we head up there. I got my little Father's Day presents all wrapped up, and we got the little card, and I got a couple things for him, and I'm kind of excited, but I'm not really feeling right at the same time.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we get all the way up there, and he lived way out in the country, and so there was a lot of dirt road driving. There was like a weird detour because the bridge was out, and it was just so dramatic. And like there's like this one little bridge, that you have to cross to get to his dirt road, and it was out. and so we got to go all the way around this big detour. I just remember it like taking so long to get around, and we're like all the way down these dirt roads we're not familiar with, trying to find our way around. And we finally get there, and the gates the gates closed. And I'm like, let's just park here at the gate. Kind of got like a long driveway. He's got like 10 acres, and his house is like way up there. So I'm like, let's just leave the car here. We got the stuff, and we're just gonna walk up the driveway. I'm like, this ain't feeling right. This ain't good right now. Like
Mhm.
I just remember like saying that like all the way up there. I was like, something ain't right. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And we get up there, and his vehicle's there, and I was really hoping I didn't see it, if you really want to know the truth, because that meant he was just gone.
Right.
And it was there. And we go up there to the house. And I do want to set the scene. I mean, he lived out in the middle of nowhere. Like there wasn't just like neighbors right next door. Like I got
Mhm.
neighbors right next, there wasn't nobody around. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
uh I think most of the land around him was like leased out for deer hunting. There just wasn't like a lot of people that lived out there. And he wanted it that way. He had horses, and he just wanted to be left alone and do his own thing.
Sure.
So this wasn't really weird that, you know, like, I don't know, I'll get to that
Well, there
part.
are a lot of people that like to live like that,
Yeah, yeah. I
out
mean,
out
that's
out
just
in
he wanted to
the
live out in the boonies. You
yeah,
know
out
what
in
I
the
mean?
boonies, it's
Yeah,
peaceful, that's a
exactly.
nice lifestyle, it's nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I go, as we're approaching the house, I'm just feeling like really nervous about this whole situation, Tish. And I'm like, man, this ain't gonna be good. And she looked at me. John David's little, he's a little 4-year-old kid standing there. It's hot. It's summertime. It's Father's Day. I'm holding presents. And she looked at me, and she's like, what are you going to do? And I just remember looking at her, and I'm like, I got to go in there.
Mhm.
There ain't nobody else here. You know, I got to at least go in and see what's going on, you know?
Right.
And so that's what I did. And I remember opening his back door. He had this creaky old door, and it wasn't even like hardly closed at all, just kind of push it right open. And I don't even know. My mind has to go to a whole different place right now
Mm.
because uh, what I seen, nobody should ever have to see what I seen. And he died. Okay, I think everybody knows where I'm going with this, but he had been in there since before that T-ball game, which was
Gotcha.
2 weeks prior.
Mhm.
And what I seen when I walked in that old rock house in the middle of the summertime with no air conditioning going, and
Jeez.
the bugs and the flies,
Oh
and
my gosh.
the the
My gosh.
I
I'm
don't even know
sorry.
how to I don't even know how to explain it. It's like something you see out of a horror movie. Like
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just had to like keep walking in there, and I mean, it's really hard for me to explain what I seen because I never seen nothing like it before in my life. I mean, there was millions of flies everywhere. There's
My
dead.
gosh.
There's just like death,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I walk into the living room, and I seen this corpse, and it took a minute for my brain to even wrap around what I was seeing because I like didn't even know what I was seeing because I mean, I'm sorry if you've ever had to see anything like that, and there's probably people that have, but the coroner told my wife after they come out there that was the worst they've ever seen, ever, and that's what I got to see. So
My god. I
it
mean, the
was like,
decomposition of a
yes,
body,
yes, it was
the
horrible.
odor, the everything, and I'm so sorry.
It was horrible. Okay,
Mhm.
like I'm
Mhm.
literally trying to step outside of my own self right now to even tell
Mhm.
you guys this story because it's literally like I literally had nightmares
Yeah.
because of this. Like I'm telling you, like nightmares. Like it took me a long time to get over this, and just the vision in my mind, like it's in there right now. Like just trying to go back to that time and what it smelled like and what everything looked like and
Mm,
how it made you feel when you were standing there, and it's just gut wrenching, and then all of a sudden there's so many questions, like what happened, like you didn't know like what happened because I like found him in his recliner,
mm.
and I just assumed, maybe he had a heart attack or something like that,
Right. Sure.
and because he was reclusive, he didn't get a lot of visitors.
Mhm.
People weren't
Mhm.
just stopping by,
Sure.
and so I think it was probably meant for me to find him, because once I came out of the house, I remember like just turning around. Like once my brain didn't really comprehend what I was seeing at first, but then once it did, it was like I was screaming, but I like no sound was coming out or something like that.
Mm,
Like it was just
mhm, mhm.
like like there was just like I didn't even feel like I was myself or anything. And I went running out of the house. I was screaming.
My God.
I was hyperventilating. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't even breathe. Like I literally was hyperventilating. Like we had no water. Like I was just remember being so thirsty and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And not knowing what to do. Like there's no cell phone service hardly. Like we couldn't even get nothing on our cell phone. It was just like bad. And John David's there. He doesn't know what's going on. He's a little 4-year-old kid. And I just remember we had to walk all the way back to the car. And I just remember just like collapsing on the ground, just in utter, like, just can't freaking believe what just happened.
Mhm.
I just couldn't believe it. And all I could think about was my brother Eli. And I'm like, we're going to have to tell Eli. Like, I got to tell Eli, like, this is his dad. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And he loved his dad, man. I mean, they looked alike. They were like two peas in a pod. Like, I mean, he loved his dad.
Mm,
And I did too. That's why I was there on Father's Day. But
absolutely.
Eli was good to come, but he was working. And we're in an hour. Do we need to shut down? Because time wise,
We can keep going if you wanna keep going. I'm good with us continuing on, or we can stop here,
it's up
where
to you. I'll try to speed this up just a little
you don't
bit
need to
if you
speed
want
it
to
up.
if you want to go for another 10 minutes or something.
We'll go
But
for another 10, 15 minutes, but you don't
okay.
need to speed it up.
I at that point, I remember we finally, got a call out to 911, and first responders came and everything like that. And I remember just having to call Eli.
Mm,
He was
I'm sorry.
working at his job, and we had to call him and tell him, and he had to come out and everything. And I just remember like holding him and crying and not knowing what to do, you know, and knowing that he's absolutely devastated, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Uh, Basically, we found dad dead on Father's Day. So wrap your brain around that. You know what I'm saying? So that puts a little bit of uh, uh, dark cloud over your Father's Day,
Yes.
And so it's like, even now to this day, it's like I love Father's Day, but like you can't have one without thinking about it.
Of course.
It's the
Absolutely.
first thing I think about. I try to just move on, but it's definitely in the back of your mind.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so, um, Eli took it bad. I took it bad, but I'd already kind of dealt with some death, you know, and Eli took it real bad. And I mean, that was his. I mean, Pat was everything. They did all kinds of stuff together. He was a great dad. Just loved each other, and I felt that pain for Eli. And we ended up kind of having a memorial service at my house with just like a bunch of friends and stuff like that. And a bunch of family came in from California, and one of our cousins from Australia actually came in. Uh, I think he was actually in California when it happened, but he was there, and just a bunch of people that were friends with Pat, all through the years showed up and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And I remember outside we were just kind of having a little memorial service, and some people were talking about him and stuff like that. And I just remember getting up there and trying to say something. And I'm not a public speaker. Like that's one of my worst fears that I'm trying to get over. And but man, then I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. But I ended up getting up. There's quite a few people there. I ended up talking, and I mean, I just friggin' lost it, man.
Mhm.
I couldn't even talk.
Mhm.
And didn't hit me until I looked out and there's Eli standing there. And then that was whenever I just freaking lost it.
Right.
And I'm just like, God, dang. I like couldn't even say anything else. So got down, let some other people talk, and make a long story short, I mean, uh, trying to deal with Eli, I'm talking to him every single day, since this has happened, which we talked a lot anyways, but it was just like a constant, like, hey man, just checking on you. Are you all right?
Right.
You
Of
want to come see
course.
me? Like, he just lives right over in the next town over. We didn't live too far away from each other. And about 3 weeks later, after this whole thing with stepdad passing away and all this kind of stuff, uh, got the memorial service over with and everything like that. 3 weeks later, middle of the night, 3 a.m., someone comes knocking on my door to tell me my brother Eli just died. And
Jess,
I mean,
Jess.
yeah, it
I
was
mean,
horrible.
I don't know. I don't know who needs to hear this. Your message of loss, and like I said to everyone that came in earlier when we first started this, is that you have been your story, that you shared with me, it it's almost, I mean, I think it's almost, people could even almost think it's unbelievable. It's not unbelievable, it's unimaginable.
It's true. Yeah,
And to have you telling and sharing this story today, and your goal and your focus is to do good, which you are.
thank you.
Um, I mean, I don't even know if sorry is the right word. I mean, how what is the word? What is I
Um,
can't even imagine what
yeah,
you
I
were
mean,
thinking when you found out, when you got that call
it
at,
was a lot. It was a
so
lot.
tell us what,
Um,
3 AM.
3 a.m. Uh, guy that's working for me named Justin comes beating down my door. I'm waking up and I'm already in absolute panic mode anyways. Like if you haven't experienced a lot of loss like that, I mean, your your brain, I mean, I had massive anxiety.
Mm,
Like I'm
mhm,
not even like who's going to die next? Like that was just kind of how my brain was working. And so I just had a huge weight on my chest from Pat dying and what I went through, like finding him and stuff like that. And I was having like nightmares and just waking up. I couldn't sleep, but I still had to get up and go to work,
mm,
And I just remember like working, remodeling people's homes and things like that. And just having like to go out to my vehicle and cry, right whenever I'm in the middle of a job. It was just hard. And 3 weeks later, after we got through all that, Justin rings doorbell. He didn't ring it. He'd beaten down my door basically,
mhm.
and he tells me he said Eli just died, and I'm like, what? I was like, what? How is this even possible? You know, how is this even real?
Mm,
And I was like, I told him, I was like, what happened? and he said he got hit by a train.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so my mind's just going everywhere. Like I just can't even freaking believe it. And I was like, what was he doing? Was he trying to outrun the train? Like,
Mhm,
and then
mhm.
I'm thinking about Pat, and I'm like, you know, how depressed was Eli? Like I was like having all kinds of thoughts going on in my head, and like I had to go down to the police came and they want me to go down to the police station and all this kind of stuff. And I just can't even get my brain wrapped around what in the world is happening because I mean it just felt like just yesterday I was finding Pat. I mean
Of
it was
course.
3 weeks later.
Mm.
And so I go down to the police station and Eli's girlfriend that he's with at the time, she's there. Everybody's freaking out. She's got blood all over his shirt. I'm just like, oh my
My
God.
God.
I was like, what happened? And I mean, I'm just going to tell you, Eli, late that night, decided, you know, he wanted to do train dodge. And he didn't make it. Train won, basically. Train's going to win every single time.
Right.
But why he did that, Tish, I have no idea. You know, I found out later that sometimes whenever Eli would throw a couple back
Mm.
and they're hanging out down around the tracks, sometimes they would do train dodges for shits and giggles.
Sure. Mhm,
Don't know
mhm,
how else to say it other than that.
mhm.
And his best friend, Steven, came over and told me when we had the little memorial service for Eli. He come over and told me, he said, man, I just want you to know. He said, that's not the first time Eli's done that. And I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, I've literally pulled him off the tracks before from doing that. And I'm saying, Eli, but I didn't know any of this.
Right, right.
Eli was funny. He was the funniest person that I knew. He was adventurous, but sometimes he did crazy stuff, you know. And I don't know if life got the better of him, and he was in that moment at that time, but he didn't make it. You know, threw his body 125 feet down the track, and he didn't stand a chance. You know, so that after that happened, Tish, my life was just kind of a blur for a while. You know what I mean? It was a
And I
lot.
can't even I c I don't think anybody can even remotely even imagine
Uh,
what life for you was like after that. I
it was
mean, it
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 was
is
hard.
that is too much loss
it
for
was
one.
it was hard. You know, it still is hard. I'm not gonna lie. I still live with some of that same anxiety. Waiting for a phone call or what's gonna
I
happen
mean, I
next.
can imagine
Yeah,
PTSD, anxiety,
yeah,
that's a lot of trauma, and so when you come on Monday, I we want to hear your journey of grief
yeah. Absolutely,
and, your journey to healing and to how you are, gosh,
absolutely. I mean,
one
if you want me
inspirational.
back, there's a lot more to the story. Because it doesn't just end there, and
I know,
we
and I
all go.
do want you back, and we do
I
want
appreciate that.
to I mean, but Jess, you know, for me being sort of a person who sort of characterizes myself as a person that lives in a deep world, a deep sense of love, sort of hippie type love person who loves all people. But you sharing your story, I have to say, I just love the person that you are,
Thank you.
um, the inspirational man that you are. I'm sure for many, and I know now, for everybody that's listening, your mom, Marilyn. I mean, she has her own story, her own
She has her
feelings.
own story, and
Um,
I don't wanna take I was talking to one of my buddies before the show, and I told him, I said, "I don't wanna take anything away from what my mom has been through."
of
You know what
course.
I mean? Because it's different for her than it is for
That's
me,
right.
you
That's
know?
right.
And, maybe she needs to come on your show, Tish.
If your mom seriously, if your mom, because as a mother who has lost so much, you are a sibling and a son that has lost so much. And, to me, it is a miracle that you're even upright and sane
No. Well,
and, such a positive being. But
thank you.
I hope that everyone that is
I try real hard to be, I really do, because
mm,
I think we have a choice. We can live in death, doom, and gloom, or we can
yes,
figure out how to tell your story and bring a positive light into somebody else's life. And I think
absolutely.
it's just a decision that we make, and it's not always easy, but I do work on that really hard.
Well, I know that when you share the rest of, and I know it doesn't end there, but when you share the rest and then we move into your journey of healing and recovery, for me, there are many questions of how. How in the world? Um, because I think about, the loss of your brothers and then you having to find your stepdad, Pat, how you get through the trauma. Um, I mean, I wanna know how. I wanna know how, and I know
It's
that
a
everybody
yeah.
that is listening wants to know, how as well, and so I hope that, everyone can come back and join, Jess and support him, next Monday night as we continue hearing his journey, of loss and devastation. It is devastation, and of healing, um, your grief and your healing and recovery, and I can't even imagine. I even after losing my mom and after we lost Ben, there was a lot of time that was, such a blur, a lot of things that I don't remember. I can remember, not even really remembering the first year after I lost my mother, but, made some good choices after we lost, mom and Ben, and made some bad choices after we lost, mom and Ben, and a lot of them was, numbing because my gosh, Jess, how do you cope with those that the trauma, the emotion, the feeling, and so I'm so happy that you came on,
Well, thank
and,
you for having me.
absolutely,
I
and as
appreciate
always,
it.
it's an honor, and listen, I don't even know. I mean, I'm gonna say happy Father's Day to you because you're a great dad,
Thank you.
but I
Appreciate it.
really have a special prayer for you,
Thank you.
for this coming Sunday because I know that it's gotta be quite difficult, and I'm so sorry. Um
Thank you.
So we will see you for sure next Monday, and I appreciate you coming on this
Absolutely.
evening. Thank you,
Absolutely.
everybody that came in. You have a lot of love in these comments.
Yeah, thank you to everybody for joining and listening to my story. And I hope that you guys come back next week where maybe we talk about some good stuff. You know what I'm saying? So thank you to
Absolutely.
everybody in here.
And I want to end on this. Emma Rowland, your daughter, says, "What an amazing role model. I'm beyond blessed." You are, Emma. You are beyond blessed, as are we, to be able to call
I
Jess
love
our
her.
friend. So, um, Jess, you'll be able to see all of these comments. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Part 2 is gonna be continued next Monday, yes.
Sounds good.
Um, so I just talked to Jess on the phone before this live, but now I know Jess much better. Yes, Dogman said that he just talked to you,
We
on
did.
the phone,
We
but
did.
now he knows you much better. I think a lot of us
We
do,
do.
and,
Yeah. We do.
so
You
a lot of
never
comments.
Yeah, I mean, and with all of you guys in the chats, like everybody has a story,
Yes,
Tish. Everybody does.
they
And
do.
you don't know until you really get to know somebody, you don't know their story,
Mhm.
and how it's impacted their life or how it's made them be who they are today, And I'm glad for that you've given me the opportunity.
It's an honor, Jess. It is. All right, guys, I'm going to hop on out and I appreciate everybody for coming in. Jess, I appreciate you. I love you. And we will see you guys next week. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Right.